Bacterium, that the little bacterial flagellum is going to challenge Richard Dawkins quite a bit, and he's going to sort of feel very bad things and go after that idea of irreducible complexity, because he realizes that if there is irreducible complexity, that means Darwin was wrong. And if Darwin is wrong, then Dawkins' whole career goes out the window. So he's going to go do his best to try to destroy that concept and try to destroy what that concept does for our understanding. And what's critical here is that we just think logically as we go through what he says. We have to think logically. And when we think logically, we find that Dawkins either totally misunderstands irreducible complexity, or he intentionally diverts our attention from that insight that irreducible complexity gives us. I have to read him. I have to just read it and get to where we need to go. He is going to attack Michael Bea and his thesis of irreducible complexity that he wrote about in Darwin's Black Box. All right, that's where he's headed, all right, because everyone now knows about it. So he's going to try to go after that, but he gets there by having us think, all right, and I just want to think too with him. And the first thing to think about with regard to irreducible complexity is the I. Okay, the I. Oh, this is, okay, whoa. The I. Oh, something like this is better, I guess. Okay. The I and the eyelashes. Okay, the I. All right. Because that's what the I was one of the things that Darwin was most afraid of. The seeming irreducible complexity of the I. Okay, here we go. Here's how Dawkins brings us into this whole issue. Creationists who attempt to deploy the argument from improbability in their favor always assume that biological adaptation is a question of the jackpot or nothing. All right? Either it's all there or nothing. Another name for the jackpot or nothing fallacy is irreducible complexity. He's right there, okay? All right, so he's going after irreducible complexity, but he gives it this name, this nickname, jackpot or nothing. And he calls that a fallacy. Okay, and we're going to say, well, how is it a fallacy? So another name for the jackpot or nothing fallacy is irreducible complexity. Either the eye sees or it doesn't. Either the wing flies or it doesn't. There are assumed to be no useful intermediates. Okay, yeah, all right. But this is simply wrong. This is simply wrong. Such intermediates abound in practice, which is exactly what we should expect in theory. The combination lock of life is getting warmer, getting colder, getting warmer. All right, so this is the whole Darwinist idea. You're getting warmer, colder, warmer, colder. Okay, you're getting close to an eyeball, okay? Everyone just sort of get half an eyeball, okay? And where would we end up? Down the stairs maybe, right? Okay, we seem like we need a whole eyeball and all it functions working together. We seem to be the case, or a bird with like half a wing on one side what would happen? Topple over and spiral down and whoosh. Yeah, well, yeah. We'll put it all together in just an example. I have sheep, and we've had 6 sheep killed this past season by a bald eagle, the bald eagles, okay? And you can't do anything about them, but they're bald eagles. And what they do is be with their eyes and their wings, okay? They come in to the sheep, either big ewes or little lambs. They come in and they peck the sheep right in the neck, exactly the right place, just one strike, and the sheep just bleeds out, just dies. They know exactly how to come down and where to hit, and they hit, and the sheep's dead, and they come back later and, eat it up. So look at that. The eyes work so perfectly. The same spot. They all get hit in the same spot in the neck. Even in the eagle. Okay, so how are you going to explain that? Everything seems to need to work together. Life doesn't seem to be getting warmer and getting colder and getting warmer. Okay, get ready to be impressed. Darwin devoted an entire chapter of The Origin of Species to difficulties on the theory of descent with modifications. Okay, so that's the chapter, a whole chapter. Whoa, bow. A whole chapter in The Origin of Species dedicated to difficulties on the theory of descent with modifications. Okay? Difficulties on the theory of descent with modifications. And it is fair to say that this brief chapter, so it's even a brief chapter, but it explains everything, okay? Anticipated and dispossessed of anticipated, like arguments now, anticipated and disposed of every single one of the alleged difficulties that have since been proposed, right up to the present day. Every single one were disposed of. Okay, even the ones he hadn't even heard of yet. The most formidable difficulties are Darwin's organs. So this is Darwin worrying. Darwin's organs of extreme perfection and complication. Okay, again, he's given us some ammo right here. Darwin calls it the organs of extreme perfection and complication. Darwin singled out the eye as posing a particularly challenging problem. This is Darwin from The Origin of Species. This is what he says. To suppose that the eye, with all of its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chronomic aberrations could have been formed by natural selection. Could have been formed by, okay. I didn't emphasize that right. I got to do it again. Sorry. To suppose that the eye, okay, get that emphasis there. To suppose that the eye, with all of its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromic aberrations, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. All right, close the book. Okay. Let's just stop there. I believe in God now. All right, Richard. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Now, this is Richard Dawkins again. What follows was Darwin's effortless explanation of exactly how the eye evolved by gradual degrees. Prove it! Right? He says this. What follows in the text, Origin of Species, 1859, what follows was Darwin's effortless explanations of exactly how the eye evolved by gradual degrees. And my little gloss here is, what experiment or observation in a lab allowed him to do this? Can this evolution of an eye be repeated in some way to allow for scientific analysis? Where is this evolution of the eye in the fossil record? How did an eye, okay, this is, because I find the eye incredible, because listen, if there's this slow evolution based on natural selection, the eye sort of develops in order to appreciate light more. My question is, why would anything develop an eye to see in order to see color if it didn't know that color existed because it didn't have an eye? How? Why would you start the process like, we got to develop an eye? Why? You know, we have to, you know, we have to develop a phaser machine gun in order to stop all the aliens from coming at the monastery. Why? Why have you... How can it be that anything would develop an eye in order to gain hold of color if the thing didn't know that color existed? The only way anyone would start the process would be someone who knew that color existed in the first place, right? Right? Okay, this is where I sort of say that. How did an eye meant to see light develop from need for survival if the creature did not know that color existed? Because it did not have an eye. Only something or someone who knew that color existed would be able to craft an eye so that the creature could see that color. Why would you evolve an eyeball if you did not know that color existed? Because you did not have an eyeball. Okay? I don't know. To me, it's like certain. I don't. And he goes on. He's getting to irreducible complexity. He says, well, okay, listen, okay. This is Dawkins. The creationists are right that if genuine irreducible complexity could be properly demonstrated, it would wreck Darwin's theory. Okay? Darwin himself said as much, and he's going to quote now from Darwin's Origin of Species. This is what he says. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successful slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Okay? That's Darwin. That's what he says. And so really, Dawkins has to go after irreducible complexity. How's he going to do that? Michael Bayer's irreducible complexity, he says it's not a new idea, but he's got to go after it. Okay. Bacterial flagellum. Okay, let's... Okay, this is going to be the black... I'm going to have to give an example. Okay. Bacterial flagellum. Okay. And how should the black bacterial? It should just like be like a little worm thing with a little tail? I don't know. Are you okay? Okay. Well, it's going to have to be a big. Okay. With a little tail. Okay. And we're going to have the parts, I'm just going to symbolize by A. Remember all the parts I went through the other day? A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay? A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are the parts. They stand for the various parts. Okay? And, all right, so I need another thing. He doesn't tell me what the... Oh, here we go. Parasitic bacteria. Parasitic bacteria. That's the example he gives. Parasitic bacteria. What is parasitic bacteria? Maybe, I don't know. This is the teeth, I guess. Okay. All right. So that's a little parasitic bacteria. Maybe some of you know what parasitic bacteria looks like. I don't, okay? Now, we're just going to put, okay, I can put F in here too. We're going to F, Z, P, Q, S, Y, okay? That's all the little parts of the bacteria, parasitic bacteria. What do you notice? What do you notice? F in common, okay? Here we go, here and here, that's in common, okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is what he says about the bacterial flagellum. Some things we haven't even... Okay, so he's laying out the bacterial flagellum. The flagellar motor of bacteria is a prodigy of nature. Okay? It is the only known example outside human technology of a freely rotating axle. Okay? So this is what we described before. It is the only known example outside human technology of a freely rotating axle. The flagellum is a thread-like propeller. I mean, he gives us so much here. Okay. The flagellum is a thread-like propeller with which the bacterium burrows its way through the water. I say burrows rather than swims because on the bacterial scale of existence, a liquid such as water would not feel as liquid feels to us. It would feel more like treacle or jelly or even sand. Okay. The bacterium would seem to burrow or screw its way through the water rather than swim. Unlike the so-called flagellum of larger organisms like protozoans, the bacterial flagellum doesn't just wave about like a whip or row like an oar. It is a true freely rotating axle which turns continuously inside a bearing, driven by a remarkable little molecular motor. At the molecular level, the motor uses essentially the same principle as muscle, but in free rotation rather than an intermittent contraction. It has been happily described as a tiny outboard motor. Like, who would know how to do all that? Who would know? Bea simply proclaims the bacterial flagellar motor to be irreducibly complex. Now listen. I need an answer. What does irreducible complexity mean? Oh, I had a definition, but I want you to tell me first. No, you don't even need a I've already given you a definition. What does irreducible, just think of the words. Irreducible complexity. What does it mean? Go ahead.
It can't be any less complex and still function.
It can't be any less complex and still function, but
It can't be any less complex and be what it is.
It can't be any less complex and be what it is, but if it's irreducible, that means what can't happen?
You can't take any of the pieces
You can't take any of the pieces out and still have it work. Okay? You can't take any of the pieces out and still have it work. So he's going after this idea of irreducible complexity by Michael Bea, and yet, why doesn't he look at Bea's definition of irreducible complexity? Well, why does he look at that? Can I give you it again? This is the definition of irreducible complexity. By irreducible complexity, I mean a single system composed of several well-matched parts that contribute to the basic function wherein the removal of any one of the parts causes the system to effectively cease function. Remove any of the parts and the system cease functioning. That's what he means by irreducible complexity. What do you think Dawkins either doesn't understand that or reinterprets the notion so he can get away with something? What do you think he's going to say? What is he going to say about irreducible complexity? The letter F, yes.
Perhaps that if you just take it far away, it'll simply limp along.
Limp along.
Simply sort of work.
Go ahead.
Because the bacteria and parasitic flagellum, they have the same comma letter, it's not necessary.
The F's not necessary?
Right, it's a common denominator between them all.
Because it's shared with this?
Yes.
Anywhere in that definition, does it say that two different systems can't have the same part? Look, did you write? Look at that definition. Does it say anywhere that in two distinct systems, of two distinct systems, they can't share the same part, or they wouldn't be irreducibly complex? Does it say anything like that? Okay. And okay, what do you think's going to happen? Is D going to work? What are we going to make D look? Maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll be a little goldfish D, okay, and the little tail, little goldfish part. No, a little goldfish. That's D taken out. Do you think we can just take out, no, not even a goldfish. We just take out D. Is D going to get anywhere in itself? Probably. Nah. Is S going to get anywhere? We pull that out? Nah. No. If we pull out these parts on their own, they don't go anywhere. Well, how is he going to attack this? What is he going to say? Because he realizes irreducible complexity means the death of Darwinism. Okay? He realizes that irreducible complexity means the death of Darwinism. Okay. This is what he says. The key to demonstrating, well, why don't you write this down, because you got to sort of look back at it and think about it. The key to demonstrating irreducible complexity is to show that none of the parts could be useful on its own. Is that part of it? That's not part of it at all. They all needed to be in place. Yeah, maybe write this down too. They all needed to be in place before any of them could do any good. In fact, molecular biologists have no difficulty in finding parts functioning outside the whole. Both for the flagellar motor and for Bae's other alleged examples of irreducible complexity. Well, do parts ever just function in themselves? Get it? Part. Part means part of some whole, right? So, okay, you know, what is it, the little O-ring or something, you know? Okay, there's an O-ring in the parasitic bacteria functioning. So, that doesn't destroy the idea of irreducible complexity in this, does it? Just because they share parts. The only problem here is figuring out what classical fallacy he's guilty of here. It seems like a red herring, doesn't it? A bit like, oh, look all over this way. The bacterial flagellum shares parts with this thing here. Oh. So, well, we're talking about irreducible complexity of the bacterial flagellum, right? What were we looking over there at something else? Okay, now he's citing some Kenneth Miller, who's, of course, a Christian, but he's obviously a Darwinist Christian, okay? Brown University, okay? And he calls attention to a mechanism that is actually part of the little bacterial flagellum. We'll pull out A here, okay? Oh, wait, no, we got to pull out F, okay. We pull out F, okay. And it's called F equals TTSS, which is type 3 secretory, like secretion, secretory, uh-oh, where's the next bit? Here it is. Uh-oh. Secretory what? System, okay, system. Secretory system. Okay. It's in the flagellum motor, okay? But it's also in parasitic bacteria, okay? This part here, this TTSS, type 3 secretory system, okay? It just serves a different function, okay? Okay. In this new system here, TTSS is not used for rotary movement. Okay, it is used for rotary movement here, but it's not used for rotary movement here. What's it used for over there? Wow. It is one of several systems used by parasitic bacteria for pumping toxic substances through their cell walls to poison their host organism. Okay? So it's not a motor, it's not a rotary motor, but it's a pump. It's used as a pump. It is one of several systems used by parasitic bacteria for pumping toxic substances through their cell walls to poison their host organism. He continues, this is the proof that there's no irreducible complexity. The protein molecules that form the structure of TTSS are very similar to components of the flagellar motor. Okay, very similar to components of the flagellar motor. To the evolutionists, so there's similarity. To the evolutionist, it is clear. How? To the evolutionist, it is clear that TTSS components were commandeered when the flagellar motor evolved. Okay? Yeah, I don't even know how to draw it. Okay, wait, no, okay. So here's his pirate hat, okay? Oh, come on. It's a terrible pirate hat. Here's the pirate hat, okay, with the feather. And now he has a handkerchief around his neck. And so he says, oh, I don't have an F here. I don't have a TTSS. Whoa, I need a TTSS, all right, so it's not going to work. I have been able to swim around those little, it's like the bacterium is being bombarded by what? Proton, no. What?
Water molecules.
Molecules, yeah, it's being bombarded by molecules, and it has to sort of avoid them and work its way around. There's something neat on the internet where they show an example of this, and it knows how to turn and work its way around the molecules because it's being bombarded with them. Okay, so little new bacterial flagellum says, whoa, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm getting, well, if you were getting bombarded with molecules, hitting in every direction, would you ever get there, you think? You'd maybe, I don't know, sort of get banged and then you float off and you try to swim around somewhere else and get banged. So you say, whoa, I need one of these TTSSs, okay? I need a TTSS. They don't have them at Lowe's, okay? So I need to hijack them from this really nasty guy, the parasitic bacteria, okay? So I'm going to commandeer the parasitic bacteria here and just board and take, oh no, you can't take it. So he says it cut and pastes it, all right? He uses the word commandeered, but then he realizes, well, then this wouldn't have it, right? But this still has it. So this bacteria cut and pastes it. It says, well, okay, I need this, all right? I won't worry about the copyright, all right? We'll just cut and paste it here and carry that back and stick it there. And we'll be good, all right? In the process of getting bombarded by molecules. The protein I'll start it again. The protein molecules that form the structure of TTSS are very similar to components of the flagellar motor. To the evolutionist, it is clear, based on I say so, that TTSS components were commandeered when the flagellar motor evolved. Evidently, based on what? Evidently, crucial components of the flagellar motor were already in place and working before the flagellar motor evolved. Like, Like you got A, B, and C just sort of doing what? The crucial components of the flagellar motor were already in place and working before the flagellar motor evolved. Commandeering existing mechanisms is an obvious way in which an apparently irreducible complex piece of apparatus could climb Mount Improbable. And then he finishes here, a lot more work needs to be done, of course, and I'm sure it will. Well, first of all, there's no evidence for this whatsoever. There's no evidence for what it's just postulated as this is the case. And it doesn't, he's totally distracting from what we know and what we grasp about this, that irreducible complexity means none of these things can be taken out from this and the whole thing works. It has nothing to do with sharing any of these components with something else. Any of these components working with something else. In fact, they don't even have the same function when they work in another organism. Has he in any way proved that to take out Y, for example, the thing would still function? Has he proved that? Has he cited that? Bacterial flagellum without one component? Has he? Okay. Is there any evidence for what he said? Or, well, obviously you haven't had your consciousness raised by natural selection, so. Okay, I have a great quote now here. Ernst Haeckel. He was, in 19th century, German popularizer of Darwin's theory. Ernst Haeckel, he was a 19th century German popularizer of Darwin's theory, because no one wants to read boring Origin of Species, so he popularized the Darwinian notions, all right, especially in Germany. And he makes the statement, here he goes, Ernst Haeckel, he says, one can imagine nothing more absurd, nothing which indicates more clearly a total lack of comprehension of our theory than to demand that it be founded upon experimental evidence. Oh, I'm going to say that again because, that's it. That's how they think. That's the tone of this book completely. That's the tone. I'm going to read it again. Ernst Haeckel. One can imagine nothing more absurd, nothing which indicates more clearly a total lack of comprehension of our theory than to demand that it be founded upon experimental evidence. In other words, what?
What? There's no evidence.
There's no evidence. In fact, no, it's not. There's no evidence in that regard. The evidence goes completely against the Darwinian thesis. Completely against the Darwinian thesis. Okay? It goes completely against. So he's having to distract, employ all these fallacies, red herrings to distract our attention from the fact that if you just look at the evidence, scientific evidence, it completely denies the idea of natural selection. Completely, on all the different levels. This idea of slow, gradual, through billions and billions of years. Transformation, piecing together of these different creatures. From imperfect, half a quarter of a wing, then half a wing. Imagine the eagle. I like eagles like that. Yeah, okay, just a quarter of a wing and then 3/4 of a wing and just, whoa! Aha. Protected bird indeed. Yeah. No, it'd be great. But unfortunately, they have full wings. Look, they're huge. And excellent eyes. That's why they call them eagle eyes, right? And no, the instinct's perfect. And listen, okay, now I'm going to ask you one more thing. Can natural selection and this slow change from one species to another, this gradual movement, this piecing together, ever be proven at all? Well, first of all, and I'll read you the quotes. This French biologist said that never has it been the case that we've ever observed an instance of evolution by natural selection. Never. Actually observed it in the lab. Never. Okay, never. One thing. They've never observed it. So the only thing they have is the fossil record, right? And I want to talk about that later because there's a lot there. Or there's not a lot there. That's the problem. But the fossil record, can the fossil record prove evolution?
There's no intermediate fossils.
What?
There's no intermediate fossils.
There's no Well,
A fossil is dead.
the fossil is dead, right? And it's that thing, right? And then you got something else dead. And it's that thing. And there's the third thing dead. Sorry to say, but it's dead. And that's another thing. You have fixed types. You have definite things. How can you, from a fossil record, prove a transition? You got this thing and not that thing. You see why they're panicking. That's why they got to write these books, The God Delusion. They're panicking. One more question, maybe one question and we'll stop. No? Go ahead, Father.
Has Mr. Dawkins tried to refute the scientists that had the irreducible complexity? Has he tried to refute that these things can't exist by themselves or not?
Has there been any comeback?
Yeah, has there been?
I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any comeback. I don't know if there's any comeback. I haven't run into it. But
Because he states A, B, and C can exist without the rest of it.
yeah, prove it. Yeah, first of all,
Where does that come from?
where does that come from? What is A, B, and C, right?
He said they were pre-existing.
Oh, looks like little eyes and nose.
How do you prove that?
Right. Yeah, like, what's this? Are they just the parts floating? Guess what? There's no parts floating. To be, like there was a big, like there was a big explosion at sea and the little, boards are floating all over and then someone, we need a board, so you float over to that and get.
Has Mr. Bayer responded to Dawkins at all?
I don't know. I don't know about this. Let me look into it. I'm not sure. But the evolutionists hate Michael Bea because if what he says is the case, they're shut down. And there is someone who can create irreducibly complex beings. So they got to shut him down. He was in court and got to shut him down because Darwinism is the only way of denying creation as so far as exists, right? It's the only way of denying creation. Karl Marx, who wanted to portray an atheistic world, wanted to dedicate his Das Kapital to Charles Darwin because he saw that Darwinism and its purposeless development and its materialistic causality, naturalistic causality, provided the groundwork for Marxism, all right? But Charles Darwin said, oh, no, you're crazy, wild-haired revolutionary. No, don't do that, please. But Marx was right, that has to provide the foundation. So Darwinism is the only substitute for the obvious idea of creation. Yes?
How does Darwinism explain creation from nothing? Because we're talking about things that already exist here and their evolution, but what about from the very beginning when nothing was there?
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, see, Darwin says, Dawkins says, he tries to explain, here's something. He tries to explain how life started. Because Darwinism only has to do with living things, right? Only has to do with living things. So he says, Darwinism, we have to figure out how life started from nothing, all right? Inanimate creatures, inanimate things. And he says, it's very difficult to explain. It hasn't happened yet, but here he brings in the math. But he says, there must be it's not completely improbable because it happened once. That was another thing. Okay. Yeah, I know, it's just good. But he also says, and I don't like this, this is the mathematical reasoning again. Here we go. There's, the earth exists, right? It has life on it. Excellent, okay? Intellectual life, actually. And it is one planet in 1 billion stars in our solar system, okay? So there's, I'm just, not solar system, but a galaxy, okay? I'm just making it up, I don't know the exact number. Okay, 1 billion stars in our galaxy or planets, and Earth is one, okay? So it's 1 in a billion. 1 in a billion chance that there's going to be a planet that can hold life. Why? Right? That's one, like, why? Also, he says, he keeps going, since there's one planet that has life that we know in a billion stars, and there's billions of stars, therefore, guess what? There's billions and billions of planets that have life. Right? Because there's one out of a billion that has life. I mean, who lives in fantasy land? The only concrete thing you have is one planet that you've identified as having life on. Actually. I mean, it's mathematics run wild. And so people say, well, oh boy, there's life on billions and billions of planets, so it's nothing special here, really.